I'd like to call this council meeting to order, please.
This meeting will also be conducted by audio and video conference without the requirement of a physically present quorum of the Rock Island City Council due to the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. Alderpersons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall due to the disaster, and physical attendance at City Hall may be limited. To participate remotely during the public comment or public hearing portion of this meeting, please join by phone at 1-262-674-8741, pin 609-842-307#.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson?
Present.
Hertz?
Here.
Gilbert? Present. Swanson? Here. Parker?
Here.
Poulos?
Here.
Healy?
Here.
Mayor Tomes?
Here. Thank you. We need to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Got a few. All right. We have time for public comment. So we'll go through the list. We have a fair amount of people. Once again, we typically do the limit of 5 minutes per person. And if we get to the second, third, fourth people, we start repeating too much, I'd appreciate that not happening. If we got something new to tell or story, that's fine. A different way, we understand. But don't need to be repeated too often. So please try to get quick and precise. First up is Josie. I think did I do that right?
Yes, Josie Ironshield.
Ironshield, okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Josie Ironshield. I am a Lakota Sioux woman. I'm originally from Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota. I am also co-founder with Sage Sisters of Solidarity here in the Quad Cities. I am also acting board member with the NACQC, the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities. And my sister isn't here. She's the other co-founder, Regina Sosi, but I have a letter from her that I would like to read in her for her absence. And I'll go ahead and get right to it. We at Great Plains Action Society, GPAS, see beyond colonial borders. As such, we are happy to include Illinois in our New Iowa Open Letter campaign. In our effort to make our communities a better place, one of our greatest sources of inspiration is our elders. Our board member and cherished source of wisdom, Regina Sosi, has taken time to write a letter to Mayor in regard to the donation of the signage of the Blackhawk to the bank. Signage of Blackhawk to a bank. We think this letter is absolutely wonderful and is excited to share it with you and to encourage you to write to the Mayor Tom, to amplify this message. My name is Regina Sosi, President of the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities, board member of the Citizen to Preserve Blackhawk Park, co-founder of Sage Sisters of Solidarity, board member of the Great Plains Action Society, recently retired educator, and a member of the local community for over 38 years. The recent decision from the Rock Island Council to gift the Watchtower Blackhawk statue to the Blackhawk Bank and Trust has caused great concern and disappointment from the local Native American community and our friends allies who support us. Please read as our following concerns. A, why was the Native American community overlooked and not consulted? B, the Blackhawk statue should not be given to a for-profit institution business where exploiting and profiting from an image representing a race of people perpetuates a form of racism which is very offensive and disturbing. C, Blackhawk State Bank in the past has been notified by local educators that Blackhawk was never given chief status according to Sauk traditions. Yet the bank continues to use the slogan, "Choose the Chief." Choose the Chief. This trivializes and perpetuates misinformation and misconceptions about a race of people. D, the current movement of the majority of Native Americans, American Indians, indigenous people throughout the country regarding the use of Native American imagery, mascots, etc., is gaining momentum in the removal of such objects due to the hostile, damaging, and hurtful environment it creates and perpetuates, especially when it involves the well-being of Native American indigenous children. E, critically, the formal position of the Sauk Fox tribe of the Mississippi and Iowa, the Meskwaki Nation, the only federally recognized tribal nation in the state, is against the use of Native American terms or images or symbols for the support or other marketing issues. Additionally, our federally recognized tribal nations, including the Ponca tribe of Nebraska, with ties to the state of Iowa, have taken similar positions against the use of Native American names, imagery, symbols, and customs as school mascots. So to have key Native organizations that serve Native people residing in the state, including the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs, an expert from an open letter written and signed by the Sauk and Fox tribe of the Mississippi and Iowa, the Meskwaki Nation, Ponca tribe of Nebraska, National Congress of American Indians, and American Indian Council. If there is an option to reverse the council's decision and create an opportunity to discuss or our concerns, seeking out well-meaning solutions, that would be the best action. I am currently in Arizona taking care of family responsibilities for an unforeseeable time and cannot be here to monitor this situation, but I have discussed this matter with the community members who are in alignment with our concerns. You may contact her via mail or call her personal number. In a good way, Regina Sosi, president of the NACQC. And being a member of this community for most of my life, I would just wish that the Quad Cities can start not only seeing us, but hearing us as well. We are an important piece of this land, and I just wish that it's time that we got some form of respect so we could start teaching our children and grandchildren.
Thank you. Larry Lockwood?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Larry Lockwood. I am a member of the Northern Cheyenne Nation of Montana, and I have been a member of the Quad Cities community for over 20 years. I'm a cultural educator. A lot of the work that I've done before, years prior, was working with tribal schools as a cultural educator. And since I did leave that area to come out here, I actually put myself in an area where there weren't that many federally recognized tribes. So my cultural education work has really morphed into diversity education. I have the opportunity to get into some of the public schools to talk a little bit about cultural education. And in 2003 and in 2004, I was awarded 2 $2,000 grants from the Quad City Arts Council for the individual artist grants. And that allowed me to take my Native American Heritage Perspective program into the area schools and talk about some of the things that are near and dear to us and some of the history of Native Americans. I've had the opportunity also, living in this community, to work with Augustana College in an effort to define cultural sensitivity to some of the students and community members who are interested in Native American culture and perhaps even had Native American heritage in their background but really didn't have the documentation or any knowledge about it. And there's a lot of people like that in our community that, you know, that have those experiences. So offering the drum to the community through Augustana College really was an effort to create some type of cultural sensitivity among the greater community at large. And while I do serve the local Native American community here, I'm a member of the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities. I also do serve the greater community, you know, with this issue of diversity education. There are a lot of things going on in Indian country right now that are really motivating people like me that live in our various communities as we do our outreach to our bigger communities. Some of the things in our greater Indian community are exemplified by my sister's work in the community with missing and murdered Indigenous women, or the Sage Sisters. There's other issues in our community too, that the greater Indian community that, you know, we go ahead and bring into our little community here. One of them too is about cultural sensitivity and the image of Native Americans. And while that has been something across the nation that's being dealt with, it's really interesting to kind of take a look and see how some of the communities have reacted to small Indian communities like ours coming up before city councils, coming up before educational institutions, and talking to them about cultural sensitivity toward the image of Native Americans. And, you know, that really did become an issue because I was working with, down in Champaign-Urbana, and that, you know, Native American identity and Native American imagery is really, really touchy. Not only just for Native Americans, but for the communities that have had those images into their communities, and it's a part of the historical thing there. And it's true here too. And there's been a lot of communities that have come together and made these decisions to change these things, even though they have been in their community for a while. And it was through the efforts of a lot of education too. You know, a lot of education, not just for our students in our community, but as well for our elected officials and for some of our corporations and businesses. Now, I have also had the chance to just basically work with the greater communities right around here, and I've enjoyed a lot of things that we've done. But it's always come around to, you know, in Indian country, what we've been collectively trying to do is to reclaim things in our past that through our own experiences and through the history of our country, we've had to experience. We've had our culture taken away from us. We've had our clothing, our traditional clothing, our language, our heritage items, songs. And so one of the things that I'm dedicated to as a Native American, I am a product of an educational system that at one time tried to beat the Indian out of our children, and they did. And in many instances now, this generational trauma is being brought to light again by finding thousands of Indian children in unmarked graves around these residential schools where they took these Indian children. So these issues are still alive in our communities, this trauma, this generational trauma, and this was something that was taken in the form of our children, our identity, our imagery, our songs, our language, everything, our clothing. So now, Native Americans have been granted citizenship in 1924, which seems kind of ironic since we were like the first Americans. We're like the last ones to receive our citizenship here. But since then, Native Americans have been allowed to start reclaiming all of these things that have been taken from us. Our culture, it's been ratified by Congress now that we can start practicing our culture and our religious practices now. And that wasn't that long ago. So we are still, as communities across this nation, we are still trying to reclaim those things that were taken from us back then. And while it may seem, well, we can both agree that the image of Native Americans is valuable to both the Indian community and it's valuable to the non-Native community too. Because here in this community, we've had that image that's been part of our history here in this community. But just like the other communities across the United States, where they've carried these images and it's been a part of their local history, even with schools and their mascots. They also came together collectively and started changing their minds about some of these things that have been going on for years, and they can change it now. So what I'm doing is I'm encouraging you to become pebbles in the stream. Basically, the story is that there was this river that was going through this field where the people were trying to live, and every time they tried to put their garden up, this river, when the thaw would come through and bust through everything, and it was a real pain in the patootsky. So everybody was trying to figure out how to control this river, and it just wasn't working. Every time there'd be a thaw, this river would come through and bust through wherever they moved. And finally, this elder came out, and he goes, "No, you're doing it all wrong." He said, "The river is way too strong down here." He said, "What you got to do is you got to follow it back to its source. Keep following the source of the river back up to the high places and keep following it to where it gets smaller and smaller, and here it's just going to be a little stream." He said, "Then what you do is you take a pebble and you put it in the stream, and it changes the course of the stream, thereby changing the course of the river downstream." And in this case, the pebble in the stream, I think, is just really doing things the way we've been doing them, and just kind of thinking that this is the way it's been, so this is the way it's going to be in the future. And I'd really challenge you to please become the pebble in the stream to help change this kind of thinking to something more healthier and a little bit more respectful of our Indian community who's still here. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. All right, we got Janes, is it Simonson?
Thanks, and I want to especially thank Josie and Larry for being here tonight and representing the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities. Their words and their experience are more important than mine because this really affects them, but I want to make a claim that our use of Native American imagery affects all of us here in our community, and to speak from that perspective as well. So my name is Jane Simonson, and I teach U.S. history at Augustana, focusing on women's history, visual culture, and Native American history. I teach a class on public history that focuses on the ethics of representing Native American history in museums and public spaces. I teach a course on the ways that visual depictions of Native Americans have affected educational, economic, and legal policies towards them, and the ways that Native American nations and artists have responded to these kinds of representations. And I've published an essay on portraits of Blackhawk as well. Much of the work in this area shows that images of Native Americans that represent them as frozen in time, particularly at time periods chosen to represent their so-called disappearance from an area, even when meant to honor them, have real repercussions in terms of white communities' lack of knowledge of Native nations, and for members of Native communities whose cultures, needs, successes, and contributions are sidelined. So the depiction of Blackhawk on the statue at the former site of Watchtower Mall is loosely based on a one-quarter portrait of him by artist Charles Bird King, which was painted in 1837 in Washington, D.C. at a treaty signing in which Keokuk and other Sauk leaders ceded the central portion of Iowa to the U.S. government. It was a year before Blackhawk died. Ojibwe scholar Jean M. O'Brien has extensively studied historical markers and monuments that commemorate Native Americans like Blackhawks, and she has found that many of them memorialize a specific person. She calls them a, quote, famous first Indian, who's meant to signify a break between a past imagined as uncivilized and ahistorical and the start of a modern, future-oriented, quote, unquote, American culture in the area. She says that what makes these chosen first Indians famous is their, quote, role in a narrative whereby they are to be replaced. Most notable in this respect are Indian leaders who entered into diplomatic relationships, thus in one way or another authorizing the settler presence in Indian homelands. These monuments meant to honor people chosen to represent this change, especially when taken out of context and in a commercial environment, not only shape our memories of local areas, but erase the violence of wars, of removal, and the existence of Native nations as communities both in the past and the present. When a single figure comes to represent an entire culture and its history, it is easier to dismiss our role in displacing families, taking over land, and attacking religious belief systems. Thousands of people lived in houses and villages in this area, farming, hunting, and trading until the 1832 Black Hawk War, in which several hundred men, women, and children were killed by local and national soldiers who shot them from a deck of a steamboat as they attempted to cross the Mississippi River into Iowa, where they had been told to go. In 2016 and 2017, the Public Opinion Research Initiative Reclaiming Native Truth conducted surveys and focus groups, interviewed politicians and civil rights leaders, analyzed blogs, and studied nearly 5 million social media posts to understand the perception of Native people in the U.S. And this was an Indigenous-led initiative. They found the stories people believe about Indigenous people and groups are often false, based on negative stereotypes, and focus on negative traits over positive ones. Even seemingly positive stereotypes they found tend to romanticize Native people as ahistorical, mystical, natural, and all the same. They're contradictory and above all not often created by Native people themselves. These images reinforce scripts that have detrimental economic, political, environmental, and health effects on the more than 560 Native nations and 5 million individual Native Americans who are present in the U.S. today. Rather than romantic visions, they would like us to focus on the reality of their histories, their positive cultural values, their significant work to sustain the natural environment, and their longstanding and continuing contributions to the present and future of our nation, and we've just heard that from Larry and Josie today. The Sac and Fox Nation of Oklahoma has a self-governing health system, an active language revitalization program, and a mutually and financially beneficial relationship with the Chicago Blackhawks. I hope the city and citizens of Rock Island will consider how they can contribute to positive narratives about Native communities as living and vital and forward-thinking. While many have a fondness for this statue, we should ask ourselves whether continuing to have it on display in our community is good for anyone's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Is it Beth Carney? Carney, excuse me, I apologize. Trying to read people's writing.
You know what? There are like hardly any Carveys in this world, and people always get my name wrong. Garvey, Carney. I once was called Miss Gravy by a group of, yeah, so. Anyway, my name is Beth Carvey, and I am the former director of the Hauberg Museum out at Blackhawk State Park. I came to work there in 1981, and retired in 2017. So I was there for 36 years, and it was just the best job ever. The principal duties, of course, there were a lot of things that I had to do, curatorial work, and I had to mow grass sometimes, but my principal duties were in the realm of education. And that, of course, included talking to visitors, adult visitors as they came through, giving numerous presentations at various community organizations through the years, doing research, writing, and then the most rewarding of all, which was taking school kids through the museum. I mean, there is just nothing like that. So I'd like to share with you how I would begin tours with school kids. And these would be, middle grade kids, starting about second grade up to about fifth grade, because you do your marks depending on the group that you're speaking to. So the first thing I'd do is I'd say, oh boy, welcome to the park, and here you are, you've come to Blackhawk State Park Museum, and what are you here to learn about? And they'd all say, we're here to learn about Indians. All right, yes. So then my next question to them would be, okay, what's an Indian? Well, they'd think about it. They'd say, well, Indians wear clothes made out of animal skins. Indians hunt for their food. Indians live in different kinds of houses than we do. And Indians wear feathers in their hair, and they paint their faces, and so on and so on and so on, down the list of every stereotype you could possibly imagine. So then I would say to them, oh, okay, so if that's what it is, if I put feathers in my hair and paint my face and go out and hunt my food, that's going to make me an Indian too, right? Well, no. No, that's not it at all. So I would then ask them, are there any Indian people still alive? Most of them. No, they're all gone. They're all dead. Well, I told them, not so. I said, there are a lot of American Indians alive today. I'm friends with a lot of American Indians. And the Indian people that live today, they live now when we live. They drive around in cars. Their kids go to school. They wear blue jeans and T-shirts and tennis shoes. They have computers. They watch TV. They play video games. They eat at McDonald's. At which point, I am not kidding you, those kids are rolling in the aisle. They think that's the most hilarious thing they've ever heard. Indian kids playing video games, eating at McDonald's? So these are the various stereotypes that we're fighting. So I would then bring it back around full circle and ask them again, what is an Indian? And of course, the simple answer is that the Indians are the people who lived here first. They are the people who lived here before us. They are people. And sure, their ancestors lived differently than they do now. My ancestors lived differently than I do now. So, this was the point of this, was to get them thinking about these stereotypes that they've picked up from school, they've picked up from movies, they've picked up from cartoons, and maybe on a journey down 11th Street, too. My idea is that my job was to light the light bulb in those kids' brains, get them start thinking. So I do that, I'm feeling really good, and then they take a drive down 11th Street and see the Blackhawk signage statue. And there he is, in all his stereotypical glory, undermining every lesson I tried to teach. And it's difficult to give up things that are familiar to us. You know, I understand. I'm not from this community. I grew up in Ohio, but I understand that in the community there is a certain nostalgia for that sign. And I understand how those things go. I grew up near Cleveland, Ohio, and I have been a Cleveland Indians fan all my life. Yet, I was not sad when Chief Wahoo was retired. I mean, he was pretty bad. And I am not sad that the team has been renamed the Cleveland Guardians. It was time. It was more than past time for these demeaning stereotypes to be put in the dustbin, on the dustbin of history. Now, if Rock Island is able to, willing to, whatever, reverse this decision, I would urge you to do that. I would urge you to do that, to take a stand, and to do the right thing. Don't continue to condone racial stereotypes, which are harmful and demeaning to people still living today. Our children and our future grandchildren are depending on you to make a decision that frees them from any belief in stereotypes. And it's not too late to be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I always do something.
This next one, Janet Moline.
You can pronounce that name.
That one I got. We've met enough times.
We have. All right, Janet Moline from Rock Island. I was notified about the issue with the Blackhawk signage by Regina Josie, president of the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities. I am representing myself and not any other group of which I am a member. I have lived in Rock Island as a resident since 1968 and an additional 4 years as a college student. As I have all written you, I've had difficulty in understanding why no interested parties, such as the Native American Coalition, Blackhawk State Historic Site Historian, and others might have had an interest in the sign that were not notified about it being judged as surplus. Yet after a local bank met with the city, it suddenly became available, as I read in the February 14th council minutes. Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding a request to declare the Blackhawk statue at Watchtower Plaza surplus property, and that it be donated to the Blackhawk Bank and Trust. Even an attempt by a council member to refer it to more consideration was stopped by the Community and Economic Development Director, who made the request for such a declaration and donation. The minutes don't say. It seems appropriate for almost any item, but particularly one of an object connected to Native Americans, should not have been more considered. In light of all the places across the country where complaints have occurred about the use of mascots and Native images without the approval of Native Americans, I find it discouraging that no elected official or staff in the city of Rock Island that could have looked at the one Native American image on city land and not ask, why wasn't this our time to stand up against racial imaging? It seems as if not one person in our government could have had any sense of what has been going on at the University of Illinois, the Cleveland Guardians, or the Washington NFL team and connect it to our place. We had the moment to say that racial imaging of more than 50 years or so ago that was allowed to survive after the rest of the Watchtower Plaza was razed should have also been raised in light of the intense efforts by Native Americans to ask for some respect. Instead, the sign, now called by the city the Blackhawk, one word by the Development Office, which should have known that his name had two words. So again, I say, the Blackhawk statue at Watchtower Lodge became surplus property to be given away. Yes, surplus property. So much for respect for Native Americans. At least the term chief wasn't used, although it continues to be used locally. Being a chief was a hereditary designation, one that he could never have had because he wasn't born to the chief clan. Keokuk was a hereditary chief. Having to continually waste time correcting residents of the Quad Cities of this era calling the word chief is really frustrating. Some of Blackhawk's descendants live in Stroud, Oklahoma, as a member of the Sac and Fox Nation of Oklahoma. Continuing to use their family members' pictures or likeness without permission also seems insulting. One last comment. Recently we received a letter from the Smithsonian National Museum of American Indian. It states, some people believe that these kinds of statues honor Native people. On the contrary, that's not an honor. Defeating racism is the work of generations. As individuals, we may not live to see the end of racism, but we can build on the world of our ancestors by devoting our lives to fighting it at every opportunity. The National Museum of the American Indian celebrates diversity, discusses wrongdoings, tackles stereotypes, and brings the world a more comprehensive and truer story of America. As Beth Carvey has stated, the children of the Quad Cities see a statue that portrays an Indian with feathers and spears, and that's the image remembered. It's time for us to show some respect for the Sauk and get rid of that sign. We hope the City Council would reverse its decision on February 14th or find some other way to make sure that that image is no longer in our local landscape. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, another person, Vince Thomas.
In 1975, I was co-founder of the organization which eventually became the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities. So this was since 1975. There has been interest in trying to bring about some change and education to the Quad Cities. Regina asked me to try to get an appointment with the president of the bank, Jim Heiskamp. I got a response a little while ago from the executive secretary, and Regina responded, so I'm going to read you that. Thank you for your response. The Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities was hoping to meet with Mr. Jim Heiskamp, president of the bank, before tonight's city council meeting. Hopefully, we can meet with him before the Blackhawk statue on 11th Street is transferred to the bank's Moline property. We would like Mr. Heiskamp to consider setting up a college scholarship fund for Native Americans instead of pending funds for the transfer of the Blackhawk effigy to Moline. Perhaps he's willing to discuss this alternative to what we consider a deprecating imagery of Blackhawk and indigenous peoples. Some have asked, why is it taking so long? Alderman Hurt. Why is it taking so long for so many years before NACQC has complained about the statue being offensive? The complaints about such imagery, as many of the previous speakers have pointed out, has been in the national news for years and has resulted in several changes of mascots in schools, colleges, and national professional teams. Since the city of Rock Island has finally decided to take action on the removal of the statue, the NACQC has decided to have its voice heard on this local issue. We are suggesting an alternative, Mr. Heiskamp, to use funds set aside for the transfer and installation of the statue. We would be pleased to receive a response and an opportunity to meet with Mr. Heiskamp. And in a PS, we have had a small account with the bank for several years. So it isn't like we're not in touch with the bank in many other ways. And speaking as an individual, again, I would like you to consider reversing your decision. Mr. Heiskamp has an opportunity to decline the donation. He has an opportunity to do a lot more with the funds that have been set aside. And I think you would agree that there has been no contract, so you don't have to be afraid of being sued for taking away your donation. I'd be glad to answer some questions.
At this point, we're just listening to the stories.
Beg your pardon?
We're just listening to the stories, so that's...
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is that all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few more minutes. I would like to have Larry close. Thank you.
He's just got about a minute left, otherwise.
All right.
That's about it, unfortunately.
Well, they don't call me Chief Flappin' Lips for nothing. Part of the history that I have here, too, just so many different things, working with Blackhawk Historic Site. And, we would do these things in conjunction with all these kids that are coming in. And it was just such a wonderful experience, because they would come and see me, half the group would come and see me, and I'd have the drums, storytelling, have my regalia on, I'm a fancy dancer, give kids a chance to come and drum with me, and then they get done with me, and they go hang out with Beth, and they go hang out with another guy on the grounds, and it was just wonderful. So, Mike, I've had a lot of experience in this community, and I continue to have a lot of experience in this community. I'm currently working with the Putnam Museum and a tour group that comes in on the river. And we have 10 dates that we're going to have these different tours coming through the museum. So this is an ongoing work, and as a Native American, a full-blooded Native American, we're still here. And I can't tell you how much respect that I have for the work that the coalition has done. And as many of these councils that we've been in front of, you're always willing to give us an opportunity to speak, and you're listening, because that's one of the things I do with kids is I trick them into listening, because that's the only way they can learn stuff. So, But thank you again. I just wanted to reiterate that, I have an ongoing experience here in this community as a full-blooded Native American and as a cultural educator. And it's great to work in this community. We've made a lot of progress, and we're going to continue to do so.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody that spoke. There's a few more people to speak, but I want to thank everybody and continue doing the teaching in the kids. My grandkids, and my kids have gone through it. As the Molines, the Janet Molines, they've been to the park and everything else and enjoy it. And I'm sure many, many others. Please keep that up. That is very important that we keep educating. Next up is Dorothy Beck.
Thank you. I very much appreciated the lessons we were being offered this evening. My name is Dorothy Beck. I live in the 3rd Ward in Judith Gilbert's district, right across from Mayor Tomes, who does indeed have a recycling bin and who uses it faithfully, as I do. I've lived here for nearly 50 years because I love Rock Island. I love the diversity of its schools and neighborhoods. I love the beautiful parks. Blackhawk Park just down the street, which isn't a city park. I love
Just excuse me, okay. Mr. Hughescamp is in the audience if you wish to speak to him in a little later. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I even love the roads, at least the parts of the roads that don't have potholes. But I have particularly loved how serious this community has become in the past 50 years about the environment. I remember when we first discovered the recycling bins over at the water plant. We were delighted. The children and my husband and I made that pilgrimage once or twice a month, and we felt good about it. We believed we were doing something worthwhile. Yes, it's true that there was ice in the winter that made it treacherous, and there were stinging bugs flying around in the summer that made it scary, and sometimes there was debris that shouldn't have been there at all. But we loved going there to repurpose our cardboard, our tin, our aluminum, and our plastic that otherwise would have ended up in the landfill. Some years later, Rock Island instituted a ban on burning yard waste. We were annoyed. We were annoyed at first. We had oaks and a walnut that were over 300 years old, and that was a lot of leaves we couldn't burn. But when we saw what a difference the smoke-free atmosphere made for our asthmatic friend 2 blocks down, we realized the city's ban was good. Inconvenient, but good. Now we just mow our leaves into nothing. Some of them blow into Mr. Tomes's yard. And there was so much more. There were such great green initiatives in the city of Rock Island, from how the city was buying light fixtures to its repurposing of the hydroelectric plant. We were proud to be here. So it was a total shock to us when we learned that our city's representative on the Rock Island County Waste Management Agency had cast the deciding vote that eliminated the drop-off recycling that we depended on for the paper, the plastic, the cardboard, the glass now, the tin, and the aluminum that does not fit in our supersized barrel, a blue barrel that is so heavy now that I can't push it down the driveway when it's full. As we pointed out in the letter we mailed to each of you a couple of weeks ago, we are not asking the city of Rock Island to restore drop-off recycling all by itself. We only ask your collaboration with the 12 other communities in the county who have all lost their recycling. It's not just the city of Rock Island. We have all lost drop-off recycling. We only ask your collaboration with them and your joint commitment to returning drop-off recycling so that we all have opportunities to reclaim and reuse these valuable resources rather than dumping them into our landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Darcy Anderson.
Greetings. I'm Darcy Anderson. I'm also here in encouragement for, actually not encouragement, my request to you, the elected members, is to initiate a study group and inform yourself accurately about what the implications are of ending recycling within the city as well as within the entire county. That vote was a significant blow to the education of everyone in the city and in the county. The lack of those sites for people to deposit the items that can be recycled and can receive cash for the recycling of those is significant. I live by the high school. I'm a homeowner. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Rock Island. In the past, typically twice a year, I would go out and pick up trash in the high school parking lot, and it would usually average 1 trash can. Last Saturday, I went out and collected 5 trash cans. I wanted to bring those in here so that I could represent those, but I was told that I wouldn't be allowed into the building with 5 trash cans of water bottles, Mountain Dew, Doritos, Airheads, socks and shoes, tons of things. I've spoken to the city, I've spoken to the school maintenance person in regards to this. I've also reached out to the environmental club teacher representative. I've also spoken to teachers within the primary schools in Rock Island as well as Moline and Silvis. All of those have indicated that they aren't aware of any educational components happening in regards to recycling. This is damaging. This is seriously damaging, and it's a step backwards. So my request is that you inform yourselves, because what you're hearing from your staff is not the only information. And I also request that you participate in thinking creatively, because to think creatively means that you're able to take a risk, and taking a risk takes courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and those present electronically. The issue is cost versus will, in simple language. There's been no substantial solutions since the removal of the bins 6 months ago because of the fact that city staff do not, and opposed, do not want the cost factor. And I feel that this is the input that this council has received is from the city staff alone. Ending 35 years of practice where public bins were available to save our environment and to encourage recycling is a significant step backwards. For example, why do we really need the blue bins? According to the city's website on the demographic site, Rock Island has 16,929 household units, about 17,000 units. Based on a recent conversation with Public Works, 4,000 have chosen to have the curbside bin, or in other words, 24% of the city has recycling at curbside. That would leave about 13,000 of our city. 76% of our city has no recycling opportunities other than maybe going to Davenport if they can get them in the bins there, or finding a cooperative neighbor or relative to give them recycling opportunities. So in other words, the majority of our city has really no options for recycling. If we allowed optional choices at the rate we're going, it would take 11 years before we would get 100% curbside. So it seems that if you don't want the bins, then curbside should be mandatory. So the vote will have to be taken on that. And one other point, when we talk about costs in $1 million, multi-million-dollar budget, which you are looking at, along with the ARPA funds, $35,000 a year to maintain these sites in our city. And obviously, there are other expenses, $70,000. So in other words, when you're talking a multi-million-dollar budget, why not invest so that 76% of our citizens have the opportunity to recycle? That's why Darcy asked for a study session. Let's look at the facts so that citizens know that their full information, full facts on the issue have been presented. Each alderman and the mayor have the power to call for a study session, and we urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Bill Handel.
Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm a retired architect. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I have roots in Davenport, but 4 years ago, as I said 2 weeks ago, when the Rock Island County Courthouse was first threatened with demolition, I got involved to some extent, and it seemed to me the first thing, and this will be a repetition of what I said 2 weeks ago, that struck me was that over 65 years ago, although the courthouse is in pretty good shape overall, its dome was actually, it's a steeple was taken off of the outside of the building because they spent so much money renovating that building to essentially replace all the fourth floor walls that were copper with Bedford stone. So I came up as after going to Bloomington, looking at their courthouse, I decided to come up with an idea, which was essentially a takeoff of the dome on St. Peter's Basilica, which, this is very similar to what the original dome was. And I felt it was something that could architecturally stand with the building, although it's not the original one. And by having this virtual dome on the top, which you see a lot of new buildings that have similar things, because modern architects don't know how to deal with a steeple like that, so they come up with virtual domes. But it made a whole lot of sense because of our Centennial Bridge and the fact that when you're approaching Rock Island on the bridge, the arches of Centennial Bridge are lit, so we'd have a similar thing on this dome. I thought it was something very inexpensive could be done. It wouldn't have to be stone. It could be a synthetic plaster on metal studs that could be finished to look like stone from this distance. And I judge this thing would be very inexpensive. I'd say probably maybe $500,000, contrasting to the over $1.2 million that they were going to spend to tear it down. So that's what I came up with, and I think it's something that has a lot of legs, and I'd like to see the courthouse be preserved. I know it's not your province, you're the city and not the county, but I think culture, we talked about culture, it's indivisible. Even if you are a city council member, this culture of democracy, which is so important to our country, ought to be preserved, and it's preserved in its buildings. If anybody's had the opportunity to go visit what's now the fourth courthouse, the ground level, there's this display of this courthouse and its construction and its predecessors. Former Judge Mark Vanderwally has put together a very nice brochure talking about it. And as I mentioned last time, 1897, when I was contrasting us to Fort Worth, whose architect was the same and built about the same time. At that time, Tarrant County was the same size as Rock Island County. Fort Worth, of course, has grown to 2 million, Tarrant County has. They venerate their courthouse, and for one reason or another, Rock Island County wants to demolish theirs, and I just don't see. And perhaps you've been following the most recent ruling with the State Historical Preservation Group, was that Rock Island County made a good faith effort to find an alternative use for this building, and I think anybody that looks at it in any detail would say a good faith effort was clearly not made. I can think of offhand at least 3 other uses for this building. One would be because when the $28 million courthouse addition was made, the 3rd floor with 2 additional courtrooms was not built. We don't have a jury assembly room. The jury assembly room could happen on the 1st floor of this building. Probably another courtroom could happen in there, so that rather than spending another $15 million for those 2 courtroom equivalents.
I don't know if you're getting close, but your time is...
Okay, all right, thanks for that. But anyway, for all kinds of reasons, I think this building needs to be preserved and can be preserved. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, you're correct. It's the county issue. We have no jurisdiction over that whatsoever, so can't deal with it. Jim Hughescamp.
Thank you. I am Jim Hughescamp, the president of Blackhawk Bank and Trust. There has been a lot said about the city donating and entrusting the care of the Blackhawk sign, which has remained lonely in front of a massive vacant lot on our 11th Street in Rock Island, a place just a few blocks from where I grew up. I am sorry to the council that my idea to save this sign, which I consider to be a work of art, has caused you all so much pain. I can assure you that this was never my intent. Knowing I need to be brief, I will try to address the three camps, as the mayor has alluded to several more times than he should have had to, that he has been dealing with. Those people being, number one, people who are glad to see it being donated to a place where they know it will be cared for properly and honored for what it is. Number two, those who have come out all of a sudden with plans of their own to keep it in Rock Island. And finally, three, those who wish it to be destroyed. I shared detailed comments in response to an email I received from a person passionately working to have it destroyed last night with the mayor, a Native American who deals at the highest levels on these issues, and the founder of River Action, and the individual who wrote me a somewhat threatening letter. First, to the crowd that supports the council's original universal vote to donate this sign to Blackhawk Bank and Trust. I've received many calls and texts thanking me for my action on this issue and their excitement to see it have a safe new home. Thank you for those heartwarming thoughts, thanks, and efforts to reinforce your more quiet opinions to myself and the council. I can tell you that I sincerely appreciated them. To the second crowd, who all of a sudden has all the ideas to save the sign after I already moved with a concrete plan to save it, it's somewhat disappointing, but expected, as you see this thing all the time. I have people coming to me saying, where were all these people as the sign sat crumbling before them each day? The sign is in bad repair, especially from the inside, and the crumbling concrete base that it now stands on. I'm shocked that it survived the derecho, according to the company that assessed it. I, personally, will not be too critical of this crowd, as I share their love for this piece of art, which has stood amongst us for almost 70 years. It's a part of our collective lives. Art is an amazing thing. It takes on special meaning to each person, and often not the meaning of the artist that created it. This sign has put an imprint on many of our hearts, minds, and imaginations. I could never argue with those hopes to save it. The only thing that has bothered me from this camp is the criticism of this council. Accusations that this was backdoor politics, which is pathetic, and most seriously, the division people see between Rock Island and Moline. I thought that our school district was actually called the Rock Island Moline School District. To see so many continue to look to divide our Quad Cities versus loving the collective whole is sad to me. Mayors and council people, especially throughout Rock Island and Moline, but also on both sides of the river, will tell you that I've always spoken to this issue and tried to lessen the divide. It's who I was yesterday, who I am today, and who I will be tomorrow. I just think it's better to come together rather than to push division. To the third camp, made of Native Americans and people who support their causes, I also feel sympathy. We have been made out, the bank, we have been made out to be some white corporate entity trying to capitalize on Blackhawk's image. I say sympathy because I know what was done to these people 200 years ago. I feel that treaties should have been entered into with good hearts on both sides and honored. That didn't happen, didn't always happen. To say that I'm doing this to profit off an image of a great man of action that Blackhawk was is perpetuating a stereotype that you all say is wrong for people to do. I don't know why under due process people didn't reach out to me and ask me what I had planned for it. To say that the sign perpetuates racial stereotyping, I can't accept. It shows a proud man dressed in a long blue robe, holding a spear with a beautiful, inwardly calm, but stoic gaze. hardly that of a warrior charging into battle. But a warrior he was, and he should never be stripped of that. I have long known of he and Keokuk, who I also hold in great esteem. I was born in Keokuk, moved away from our ancestral family to Rock Island when I was 5, and then moved back there to teach history and coach for 10 years as my grandparents needed help, which I was gladly willing to give. Every day, I walked past an actual bronze statue of Keokuk overlooking the Mississippi high on a bluff, as this was the path I took with my dog. In between those two times, I visited Keokuk with my brothers and sisters, where we generally spent 2 weeks in the summer floating between the many relatives that still remained. I know what happened 200 years ago. It does not make me happy, but I can't undo the past. As I explained in my longer, more detailed response yesterday, this is one tragic event in our history, and it was truly tragic. But since the first written histories from Mesopotamia some 7,000 years ago, there's been countless other tragedies that cannot also be undone. Throughout human existence, we have fought, conquered, and killed one another, often sadly and unjustly. Those wounds, even though 200 years ago, are simply more fresh and still sting compared to the wrongs of 7,000 plus years. Now that we all know a few buttons can be pushed to end civilization as we know it, we have tended to remain at relative peace. But this is now thrown out the window when you witness the tragedies occurring in the Ukraine. I suppose we will never learn from the mistakes of the past. I want this third crowd, the Native Americans, to know that I had no intent of dishonoring this sign of Blackhawk. I couldn't do that, as I honor him too much for what he did. You have never seen us use an image of Blackhawk in a negative fashion. To the contrary, we have spent a lot of money to get his image correct, even a few years ago. I want you all to know that I have heard the responses from Mayor Tomes and Native organizations, such as the letter from a member of the Native American Coalition of the Quad Cities, Citizens to Preserve Blackhawk Park, Sage Sisters of Solidarity, and the Great Plains Society, who wrote an open letter to Mayor Mike Tomes and other enrolled tribal members and allies. On behalf of the bank, I have decided to contact the Sac and Fox Nation and consult with the chief and tribal council on the best way to honor and show respect for this beautiful, respectful sign of Blackhawk, a man both of us admire very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the public comments. We shall move on. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm sorry, you were a good question. Virtual, I keep forgetting. Virtual, is anybody virtual for comments? Unless I fell asleep. All right, that does conclude. Thank you. Item number 7.
Minutes from the February 28th, 2022 study session and city council meeting.
Move to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Yes.
Healy.
Yes.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item number 8.
Minutes from the February 28th, 2022 closed session.
Move to approve the closed session minutes.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos. Poulos. Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item number 9.
Claims, report from the Human Resource Department regarding payment in the amount of $14,074.63 to David G. Morrison, City Attorney, for services rendered during the month of February 2022. Report from the Information Technology Department regarding payment to Harris Govern, Chicago, Illinois, for the Govern software maintenance in the amount of $32,942.36 for business licenses, permits, and C, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment to John Robert Westfall of Moline, Illinois, in the amount of $3,300 for the 2022 annual land set-aside program.
Motion to approve claim items A through C.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos?
Yes.
Healy?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Yes.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
D, report from the Human Resources Department regarding payment in the amount of $7,900 to Ms. Diane Sanchez of Bettendorf, Iowa, for a general liability claim.
Motion to approve claims item D.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos?
Yes.
Healy?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Yes.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
E, report from the Legal Department regarding payment in the amount of $412,500 to Bozeman Neighbor Patton and No LLP of Moline, Illinois, representing the insurer for Augustana College on a subrogation claim.
Move to approve claims item E. Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos?
Aye.
Healy?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Yes.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
F, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $26,555.69 to McClintock Trucking and Excavating of Silvis, Illinois, for an emergency sewer main repair at 2510 30th Street. G, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $55,314.58 to McClintock Trucking and Excavating of Silvis, Illinois, for an emergency storm sewer repair on 8th Street and 11th Avenue.
Motion to approve claims F and G.
Second.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Due to the nature of my employment, I need to recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Item number 10.
Claims for the week of February 11th, 2022 through February 17th, 2022 in the amount of $2,616,948.82. Week of February 18th, 2022 through February 24th, 2022 in the amount of $351,716.15. And payroll for the weeks of February 7th, 2022 through February 20th, 2022 in the amount of $1,478,841.15.
Move to allow the claims and payroll.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Yes.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item number 11.
Amendment to Article 3, Section 6-48 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the Fire Pension Fund Board, second reading.
Move to pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item number 12.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding bids for the purchase of dry barrel fire hydrants and 2-bolt wide range couplings, recommending the bid for fire hydrants be awarded to Core and Main of Washington, Illinois, in the amount of $62,086.65, and the bid for couplings be awarded to Zimmer and Franciscan of Moline, Illinois, in the amount of $20,858.73.
Move to award the bids as recommended.
Poulos, second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item 13.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding bids for the installation of an automated entry gate, recommending the bid be awarded to Sampson Fence of Bluegrass, Iowa, in the amount of $26,415.
Motion to award the bid and recommend and authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Yes.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Yes.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson. Aye. And Parker.
Aye.
Item 14.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding bids for the purchase of weed and feed, recommending the contract be awarded to Advantage Weed and Feed of Bettendorf, Iowa, in the amount of $34,940 for a 3-year period.
Move to approve the bid as recommended and authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Yes.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson. Aye. And Parker.
Aye.
Item 15.
Report from the Police Department regarding the emergency purchase of a replacement S2 controller system from Midwest Alarm Services, Davenport, Iowa, in the amount of $15,750.
Move to approve the purchase as recommended.
Second.
Poulos.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Yes.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item number 16.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding a request for a loan extension agreement.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve the loan agreement extension request as recommended and authorize the interim city manager to execute the agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have some questions for Miles.
Yes.
So, Miles, could you please provide the public some background on this? And can you tell us what the process was for monitoring?
The original agreement?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is an agreement that dates back to 2006 for $50,000 that was the city's contribution to the rehabilitation of the Sala Flats. So it was one of several funding sources for that project's original rehab. The loan was made out of the downtown TIF, which is part of the issue here, right? It's not city's money, it's all the different taxing bodies' money. The loan was structured so that the borrower, in this case Growth, would be making interest-only payments over a 14-year period, and then a balloon payment of the principal, so the full $50,000, at the end. The end was in 2020. A couple of different things happened that caused some confusion. First, the two organizations, Growth and Rock Island, obviously have had in that 14-year period quite a bit of staff turnover. So there's some institutional knowledge issues there. There was also a little confusion in that the way in which the loan had been recorded, the bank, the borrower, and the lender had slightly different dates on their books about when the balloon payment was due. So there was some, reasonable confusion about exactly when we should begin our conversations about the balloon payment. Growth came to the city because they are looking to do some creative financing to do some improvements to the Sala Flats now. Some of that funding will come from IDA. IDA is aware of the situation with this loan and is not comfortable moving forward until it is resolved. Growth approached us basically saying that at this point in time they are unable to make the balloon payment because of changes in their own finances over the last 14 years. Until they were late on that payment, they technically weren't in violation because all they had to pay was the interest. In terms of monitoring, though, a fair point can be made that we should have begun a conversation with them earlier to confirm that they could make that balloon payment when it came due. Really, it's the structure of the loan with that balloon payment at the end that's the problem, the structure of the arrangement.
very few people, I think, would enter into a loan where they were going to pay back the entire principal right at the end of that term, right? It would be much more manageable to make monthly payments, right? That's what this loan extension is made to do, to try and correct that original loan structure. These monthly payments over the next 5 years amount to a little over $800 a month. Growth can pay that down that way. Also, the benefit of a monthly payment is that we see that payment coming in every month, so we know that we're in good standing. And if it doesn't come in, it triggers a conversation between the city staff and the growth staff about what the status of the loan is. So I hope that provides some background on kind of what the issues were and what we hope to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. I think we're all in agreement, whether it's growth and us or any other borrower, that a balloon payment arrangement in a loan is probably ill-advised. It makes it so that we can't keep each other accountable.
So, there was no process for monitoring these, or what?
Well, technically, they were in good standing until the very end.
Okay.
Is the issue. So,
So just all that background information is great. I just wish it had been in the memo, especially that it was interest-only payments.
Sure, and the point well taken. We will make sure to put that kind of info in there in the future. This is, again, kind of an unusual loan. It's the only loan out of the downtown TIF. So it's kind of a one-of-the-kind deal. So hopefully it won't come up again.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? I like that jacket, by the way.
Okay. Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Swanson, or Robinson, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Aye.
Hertz.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item 17.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding contract negotiations with IMEG Corporation of Rock Island for the 31st Avenue resurfacing project between Illinois 92 and 11th Street.
Motion to allow the Public Works Department to negotiate a contract with IMEG Corporation.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes. Hi, Mike. So I don't have to ask you to come up on the next item as well. When we go to the memorandum, I've got a question where it talks about IMEG being determined to be the best qualified. What can you elaborate on what that really means? I mean, it doesn't say lowest bidder. I mean, what does best qualified mean when you guys come up with?
So purely based off of qualifications, there's no cost factor included in this proposal. Once the council would approve the consultant, we will go back with them and determine the costs, and then come back to you with the proposal for the cost for them to do the design of the project. We're purely rating them off of their qualifications, and there's a sheet that our engineering department uses that rates each one. And when it mentions that the director, city engineer, and assistant city engineers reviewed, everybody fills out a sheet. I did not fill out a sheet. I was in the room overseeing the selection, but they select it based off of certain criteria, and that's how it's selected.
So are resurfacing criteria the same for all projects?
Not necessarily. In regards to, resurfacing, yes, as a whole is a standard practice. It's the same type of construction, but in regards to 30th Street, that does require some right-of-way at the intersection of 30th Street and 18th Avenue. And in regards to Hutchinson, they've done a lot of right-of-way acquisition. The process with IDOT in the state, it can be cumbersome, and they've done a lot of those before. They have a lot of retired IDOT staff on their current staff, and they do a lot of these type of projects for the 30th Street.
Okay, so we're kind of intermingling here a little bit, and that's fine. So with that being said, sir, I guess if they're both, so you're saying IMEG is not qualified to do this one, is more qualified, and Hutchinson is more qualified to the other one? I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand, aren't they both qualified in both, or not the same
In the selection for the 30th Street project, we're saying that IMEG was selected as the second most qualified to do that design for that project. We have used IMEG on lots of projects. They're a great consultant. They have several other projects that we're currently using them on. The Southwest wastewater plant, they're doing that work. I believe we have one other project that they're currently working on, so this will be the third project. So, it's completely up to the council. If the council wanted to use IMEG for both projects here, that's completely.
Well, obviously, I'm kind of more pushing towards the Rock Island, business here, so, and I was just and reading through this, it seemed it had the same best qualified, and I guess I was trying to find what the difference was and where that difference lied in between the two projects, so that was my question for you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I just have one thing. Mike, can you confirm, isn't it state statute that requires us to go use, instead of a request for bids, it's a request for qualifications when you need engineering services and other professional type services?
You don't combine the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Due to Hutchinson being a tenant of mine, I need to recuse myself.
This is the IMEG one.
We're doing the IMEG one first. Item 17.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item 18.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding contract negotiations with Hutchinson Engineering of Moline for 30th Street resurfacing project between 5th and 18th Avenues.
Motion to allow the Public Works Department to negotiate a contract with Hutchison Engineering for the 30th Street resurfacing project.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Due to Hutchinson being a tenant of mine, I need to recuse myself.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
What? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Bartels, could you come back up to the microphone? To clarify, because we were talking about both projects during the last agenda item, staff is recommending that we go with Hutchinson because they have more experience with right-of-way acquisition and dealing with the state DOT. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. That's what made them stand out on this project.
That's all I needed, thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item 19.
Report from the Fire Department regarding an agreement with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forest Services, in order to acquire excess federal property to be utilized for fire operations.
Move to approve the agreement as recommended and authorize the interim city manager to execute the documents.
Rule second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item number 20.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2022 budget, increasing the Federal Drug Prevention Fund in the amount of $15,750 to cover the emergency purchase of an S2 controller system for the police department.
Move to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Second.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call. please.
Hold on.
Oh,
hold on,
I'm sorry.
Chief? Just for clarification for anybody that may be just watching this, can you explain what the S2 controller system is?
Sure. This is a computerized system that allows us to remote control the doors, the gates, all those things within the police department. When the police department was built back in 2014 and 2015, This system was put in place. Unfortunately, it was a standalone system that we were unaware of at the time that was standalone. IT was unaware of it and didn't have a backup. Basically, it wasn't backed up. So we realized a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, that our doors weren't acting quite right and alarms weren't working that right. So we brought in IT and they figured out the problem. And so we have to basically replace the system. We are, now that we know about it, if this were to happen again, we will have a backup system in place.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item number 21.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department amending Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, adding Article 11, Section 17H of the zoning code for regulating intermodal and portable storage containers, first reading.
Motion to consider the proposed amendments to the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item 22.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding an ordinance rezoning from R2-1 and 2-unit residence to B3 community business to Martin Pisano, owner of Pisano Holdings LLC, for property located at 734 24th Street, first reading.
Move to approve the rezoning and consider the ordinance.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
I just have a question for clarification. Isn't it supposed to be, I thought that the department recommended not rezoning and getting a special use
Yes.
permit?
Yeah,
Am I recalling correctly?
you are, can we open the report? What staff's recommendation is, so this may be a typo in the agenda that I missed, and I apologize if that's the case, is, so what we're recommending is actually a special use permit instead of the original request, which was for a rezoning. So when this went to the Planning Commission, city staff said that they did not support either, but if a good argument could be made and stipulations put out, the Planning Commission was comfortable with a special use permit. So that is what's being recommended with the 7 stipulations to the special use included. If we scroll down to, I think, the second map that shows the aerial imagery, you can see the property that is the subject of this in blue. It is a very narrow residentially zoned lot between 2 houses, also on very narrow lots. So what was originally being requested was for this to be rezoned to B3. And that would make it a classic example of what we call spot zoning, where you insert a very different zoning district into a surrounding of something else. Not typically considered appropriate. You can imagine the problems it causes, especially for a smaller site. But for what is being requested, the Planning Commission felt that a special use permit with the stipulations in that memo could make it work, because obviously we don't want to make things more difficult for a long-standing Rock Island business that is looking for somewhere to store things. So the motion on the table, I think more correctly, would be a motion to consider the special use permit and the ordinance that goes with it.
Who seconded?
Who seconded that?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay, and I withdraw my motion.
It's been withdrawn. Is there a new motion?
I will make a motion to approve the special use permit with the 7 stipulations and consider the ordinance.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Good catch.
Miles, does this require 2 readings?
Yes, so this is how it would be structured unless you're suspending the rules to pass it in one.
Yes, I would like to do that. So I'm going to withdraw my second.
All right, I'm going to withdraw my original motion, and you can make the next motion.
All right, here we go. Move to miles past the,
So what you would move is, you'd move to consider, suspend the rules, and pass the ordinance.
No,
You can talk
first
about the,
approve the special use permit.
Approve the special use permit with the 7 stipulations, suspend the rules, and pass the
And then
ordinance.
consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance.
so moved.
Yeah. We'll get through this together.
Second, I think.
there you go, it's a team effort.
When you say, does the city clerk know what was motioned? That's the important part.
I do,
Perfect,
thank you.
perfect.
That's the issue, as long as it's reflected in the minutes and,
I got it, thanks.
all right. And you seconded it?
Yeah, so did Bill.
Oh, so did Bill, all right, very good. I hate to even ask another discussion. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy?
Aye.
Robinson.
Excuse me. Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Worked on that one. Item 23.
Report from the General Administration regarding amendments to Chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances regarding video gaming licenses, first reading.
Anyone want to make a motion on this?
Can we suspend and make it a ordinance?
Yes, we can suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules and make the proposed amendment an ordinance?
Wait a minute.
Judith, I'm sorry, I'm not, I can't.
So the motion would be, Alderperson Healy, would be to, motion to, I'm sorry, what was that? Motion to suspend the rules and consider the proposed amendments to the ordinance, and pass the ordinance.
Isn't it
To pass the
consider
ordinance,
suspend
yeah.
the rules and pass
the ordinance.
the amendments to the ordinance?
Yes.
I think that would be the correct
For suspending
terminology,
rules,
yes.
yeah.
Wow.
Which will be reflected in the minutes.
Wow. Struggling with this tonight. Is that what you used to do, Mr. Healy?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
And move to second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 24.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding a resolution appropriating $800,000 of the motor fuel tax funds for street maintenance in 2022.
Move to adopt the resolution as recommended.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item 25.
Report from the Mayor's Office regarding the reappointment of Greg Hass to the Fire and Police Commission Board.
Motion to
Move to
approve
approve the reappointment as recommended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any
Did I
discussion?
walk over somebody?
No, you're fine.
Don't worry about it.
Yes, exactly. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 26.
Report from the Mayor's Office regarding the appointment of Todd Thompson as City Manager.
Move to approve the appointment as recommended, adopt the resolution, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion?
Oh,
Yes.
I just have some comments to make
That's
about our
fine.
new city manager.
There you go. He's in the audience.
Yes, so I'm very happy to welcome Todd and his family to Rock Island. And I just would like to share with the residents the many things that I was impressed with about Todd. So Todd is coming from Galesburg, which is also a council manager form of government, so has a very clear understanding of his role as city manager. When asked during his interview if there was anything he saw a need for improvement, he discussed our budget document, which he said is basically a list of line items, and he felt there were ways he could assist us in presenting a better budget document. And I know personally that I have several constituents who have studied that budget document and will be very happy to get a new type of document to present. We also discussed strategic planning in his interview, and he understands that the strategic plan should drive the budget, and a good plan needs continuous updating. And last year, our 2022 budget was completed before we had finished our strategic plan, so some of our key goals were left unfunded. He also stressed in his interview that city staff and elected officials are here to serve the residents, and I'm glad that you recognize that. Todd has great experience in using a conservative approach to using incentives, and I'm very happy to hear that as well. So Todd also has a philosophy of continuous improvement, and I like that. In Galesburg, they even did a community-wide satisfaction survey. I was impressed with that. He encourages the review and implementation of best practices in running the city. So I believe that Todd has many strengths, skills, and experiences that will help make Rock Island a better place to live, work, and play, and I look forward to working with you.
Okay, any other further comments? I echo those sentiments and feelings, that's for sure. I had an opportunity to visit with both Todd and his wife in length and everything else, and had an enjoyable conversation. And I can say that the citizens of Rock Island and the city of Rock Island are gaining great individuals, and will definitely be welcomed into the city of Rock Island and here at City Hall. And we look forward to working with Todd and in making the future a very bright future. So thank you very much for accepting this, and so welcome. Actually, once we take a vote.
Yeah, vote.
Oh, Mayor, do
Yes.
you want to make a mention about the agreement?
Yes, yeah, I was going to do that after it got received, but that's fine, well. So let's take a roll call.
Alderperson Poulos?
Aye.
Healy?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Yes.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Swanson? Aye. Parker?
Aye.
Outstanding, unanimously voted. So how about that? You're in. There's no going back now. I do want to let the public know that they can find, it's public knowledge, the contract that would be signed, will be signed yet hopefully this evening on our part. But you can go to you should be able to go to our website either later today or tomorrow at the latest, but hopefully today, this evening. You can go to the city's website at rigov.org, and then you push on the government button, and from there you can go to the city managers section, and there's a link for the contract that'll show the contract, what we just approved. So it's open to the public, obviously, what we just approved, and they can read that and for their future. So it should be posted, like I say, later tonight. If not, it'd be tomorrow morning at the latest, but we'll work on getting that posted soon. Okay, very good. Positive note. Anything else, other business?
Yes. I'd like to propose that we add to a future study session the topic of the recycling bins and where we're at with that. And then, so Mike, you can give us some presentation as well, and we'll kind of update everybody so everybody knows where we're at. And we have a meeting tomorrow, and hopefully I'll get some more information, but.
I had already made that written request too, so there's two.
Okay, very good.
I'll make it 3.
All right. Seems to be
Four.
growing. 4.
5.
6. Outstanding. We will work on getting that done. I was remiss, and real quick, not to belabor this meeting, but update Rock Island. A couple of items there that we did not read earlier.
4 minutes.
Miles over there's laughing. But, so real quick, There's some important stuff, but free tax preparation assistance is still available at the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center through April 9th. The Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program will prepare taxes for free for eligible Quad Cityans. For more information, you can visit www.unitedwayqc.org/VITA, VITA, or you can call, which is a lot simpler, 563-355-9900. The Development Association of Rock Island, DARI, is offering 2 scholarships for $5,000 to Rock Island High School seniors. To help kick off its community marketing campaign, Why Rock Island, DARI is asking participants to use their imagination to create a video or other visuals to tell the story of why Rock Island is a great place to live, work, and play. For more information, contact Stacy McIntosh at DARI's program manager at smcintosh@rockislandforward.com, or you can call 309-732-1186. Applications are due by April 22nd. QCCA Expo Center, to host its annual Flower and Garden Show Friday, March 25th, 2022, through Sunday, March 27th, 2022. This year, the QCCA Expo Center and the Quad City Builders and Remodelers Association are teaming up to hone one unique home and garden show event. Vendors will be on hand to discuss and provide resources for all your landscaping and home remodeling projects. For more information, you can visit www.qcexpocenter.com. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, obviously, Todd and his wife, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, I wanted to make a comment about the Blackhawk sign with Abel. I just wanted to thank members of the public that came to the city council meeting this evening and share their stories. I apologize for not being present in person, but I certainly listened very closely here virtually. I wanted to apologize for my part in the decision, and I would close by asking our legal staff to provide some clarification as to why a single member of the city council is unable to add an agenda item to rescind a decision in which they were in the affirmative the first go around.
With regard to, can you hear me, Alderman Parker?
I sure can, thank you.
Okay, so with regard to that issue, there is no policy or ordinance that addresses what it takes in order to get an item on the agenda, and therefore the default goes to the statute, which is the same statute for calling a special meeting for 3 alderpersons or more, is what I have found in my research.
Is it not the case that Robert's Rules of Orders is adopted as the standard for running our meetings, and doesn't Robert's Rules of Orders say that somebody can bring back a motion if they were affirmative the first go around?
With regard to Robert's Rules of Order, and I think what you're referring to is a motion to reconsider, which would happen in the same meeting as opposed to a motion to rescind. That's my understanding, but I'd be happy to further research that for you on that issue. But I believe that that's what you're referring to.
Thank you for the clarification.
Alderperson Parker, just to interject here, I was on the call with Dave Morrison when he spoke with Brad Cole with IML, and that's where we got our guidance from as far as whether or not to put that back on the agenda with IML. And that's who referenced the statute. And also referenced the city manager form of government as well, in terms of how that all ties in there.
I appreciate that clarification. At the end of the day, I should hope that my colleagues on city council would agree with me that this is something worth putting back on the agenda and taking into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Alderperson Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Thank you,